Working with state governments is always challenging. The main point is that the state governments have not made up their minds about what the outcomes of education should be. We're trying to do that in India, and some of our partners are doing in other countries. So what we do is we do things on the ground, try to demonstrate that change is possible, and try to engage state governments at different levels. It's not only that you work with the top government official. If you try to do that, you're putting all the eggs in one basket, and that basket tends to keep shifting because the officer changes and the policy changes. So our strategy has been to work with government officers at different levels: national, state, district, and below. That way, you work a little opportunistically wherever there is an opportunity to work with a government agency. You start making inroads. And that way, I think you overcome the apathy or the resistance of the governments. And over a period of time, you make an impact and state policy changes. So in short, we are not focusing only on the top level of the government to change policy and practice, but also trying to work at different levels of government to change policy and practice at different levels in different regions. I still feel that the human contact and the organization within a village or in a school of how children will be able to access the technology and how they will use it is important. For example, now we are experimenting with peer learning processes using technology and with less teacher intervention. How can you do that? I think it's not understood fully well how this can be done. Just giving hardware and some software to a child or a group of children may not have the desired impact. It may have some impact, but it may not have the full desired impact that we have. But we are now moving forward saying that the learning to read stage is the first stage, beyond which then you can start doing many more things with technology. Although technology is all about audio visual, there's a fair bit of reading, a fair bit of understanding that has to go into it. Last year, we launched a campaign to reach 100,000 villages within 3 months. And the simple thought was 2,000 full-time Pratham people will fan out across the country. And if each one reaches 50 villages, then you've got 100,000 villages. Simple calculation. And the appeal was simply to go to young people in villages or in colleges and say, would you like to help kids in your own village learn better? And the appeal is almost instantaneous. Yes, I would like to do that. It's not about, and none of this was done on say, social media platform or otherwise. It was done face-to-face, talking to people. That's still much more effective, I think, than just the media messages. Those two work. But this is very, very powerful when you talk to a group of 100 kids, 100 young people, and say, this is what we are going to do. Would you like to help? And people come forward. The end result was within 3 months' time, we reached about 160,000 villages and slum communities, and 350,000 volunteers signed up with a simple appeal. Why don't you go test the children in your community and see what you can do to help them? That was it. And I'm sure out of these 350,000 people who have given their names and telephone numbers and all that, we'll find leaders who will want to do bigger things. I think the overall problem of education is that a lot of people do not really know that something better is possible. Because you're used to the school, we've been to the same school, our children are going to the same school, and the schools are going to be like this. People talk about, yes, my child should have a better quality education, but do not see what that quality of education is. They think that such and such private school is better because it looks better, or a person from a wealthier background goes to that school, and so that is better. But exactly what is better education is not understood. I think understanding and seeing it in front of your own eyes is important. So when you look at a village community or a slum community and say, okay, let's test all the children, and you find out that 50% can read and 50% cannot read, then you say, oh, okay, so if that change happens, then my child is going to be learning better. And will it happen? Well, 5 years the kid went to school and never learned to read. So how can it happen now? And you say, no, that's something that can be fixed very quickly. And our experience shows that, about 100 hours of learning, 2 hours a day, will take a 7, 8 year old kid to reading fluently with comprehension and with some numeracy learning as well. So when that happens in front of your own eyes, you say that, okay, so I know that this is possible. So why did it take 5 years? Well, it didn't, and it shouldn't have. So then that opens up the possibilities that actually learning is not mysterious. Learning can happen. Everybody can learn, and you can scale big, tall heights, and you say, I can learn much more. In our societies, people are not used to quick changes. But a funny thing is that life is changing very quickly. Cell phones are going everywhere. All sorts of things are changing around them. But there are some things that we don't expect to change. And now that this possibility is there, you can show that more quicker changes are possible. Of course, you should not be fixated on quick changes only, but success in small steps is something that is useful to encourage more people to work as volunteers, to contribute to the society and say that, look, if I do something, I can make a difference. And that becomes important.